Have you ever had a recent game that just filled you with a heavy sense of nostalgia? With so many indie games nowadays going for these original PlayStation style graphics, it's hard not to be captured in some sort of nostalgia for these kind of games. But for me specifically, getting that nostalgic feeling is kind of difficult, mostly because I hate joy and whimsy, and I hate feeling like a child. But there's a part of it where these games have hit a specific similarities from games from your childhood. And recently I found an early access indie game with the emphasis on the early access part that has hit a strange part of my game brain that brings this wave of nostalgia back for me. This game is called Atlyss. There is no mystical story for how I found it anyway, but this game just immediately stuck out for me from the Steam page. And no, not for the reason you might think from the first glance. This game specifically hits two spots in my brain that I've always liked: action-based RPGs and unique looking character design. And if every game I played for the past couple of years, everything kind of aligned together for me. So what is this game even about? Basic fantasy stuff, honestly. Magic, sword, furries, so many furries. They're everywhere. It's really about what you expect, though. I think the strange part is the nostalgia that the game is trying to bring you to the player hits you the second you actually load up the game. For anyone who's played older MMOs from the early 2000s, they know exactly what this basic kind of menu with this mystical sort of logo is so enticing for you. It's like teleporting you back to playing old games like RuneScape, or for me, who is not an old, decrepit man, Fusion Fall, or like Club Penguin or something. I'm just not that old. The strange part of this game, even though it feels like an MMO, it is both a single player game and a multiplayer game. Not a single player game in the FF14 sense where you just have a story that's like 90% of the game. I mean, it has like an actual single player that you can just play by yourself, no server. To actually start up the game, the first thing you're greeted with is, well, character creation. And this game has an insane level of customization, if not a little too much, I guess. Now, first things first, with all RPGs like this, you have different races. On the surface, it may seem like a bigger deal than it actually is, especially with the race-specific abilities, but I'll get to that whole thing later on. Right now, you're introduced to a total of 5 races. Imp, which is these weird-looking water demon guys, kind of have those Zelda-looking gills where they stick out the side of your head and shit. Hoon, which sounds like a slur, but are actually these like fox bunny-looking things, pretty much the standard furry of all furries that you're gonna expect from a furry game. Cubold, what a name, which looks like dragons mixed with Argonians from Skyrim or whatever. Birdle, which is a pretty simple bird creature, also looks like the Rita from the Breath of the Wild to me, just because I'm basic, I guess. And the Chang, yeah, that one also sounds like a slur, which is a pathetic looking little rat. They look so scared and wimpy. I guess it's kind of like a mouse. By looking at them, you could probably figure out what kind of races or the classes represent. I mean, the Cubold, they have default robes for like magic. It's pretty obvious that they're the magic race. But none of this actually matters. In all things in life, you should just do whatever the hell you want. And you should really just choose whichever you like the most customization wise. To me, the customization really stands out though. You have like so many colors and clothing colors, different eyes, body scales. You can change the ass size. Damn. With all the different races and customizations, you really have to just go for whatever the hell you want. And yes, I love these designs, but not for the reason you're thinking. You also notice with the character customization that you actually choose a starting weapon and stats, which makes you wonder, how much does any of this even matter? Not at all, really. Just like the race specialized abilities. But to break down all the weapons, everything is classified based off the classes that are unlocked in the future. Out of the 3 classes, Bandit, Fighter, and Mystic, you have a choice of 2 different starting weapons per class. For example, the Bandit has a bow and katars, which are like these hand dagger things that you like hold by the hilts. I'm sure they're in CSGO or something. No matter what weapon and stats you start with, you can sort of just restart anytime. So it doesn't really matter. Anytime before level 10 specifically, because you actually pick your class at level 10. For the sake of this video alone, I had characters for each one of these classes, but the classes themselves obviously don't force a playstyle on you. With the characters created, you know, you max out the asses and you can put the weapons that you want with the stats that you want. You finally actually start the game, where you were greeted for me, which was a massive blast of nostalgia. The first area you see is the classic MMO style starting area. Just from the starting area, you can tell the graphics come from those early PS2 graphics like the GameCube and like obviously the PS2, as I said, with things being a bit more angular and flat with these very cartoonish color palettes and textures. It's a cozy, little cozy, r/cozy for me. But graphics are forethought when playing a game. Like who actually cares? I mean, people sit around and they can play games that can run on an NES that come out like a year ago and it doesn't matter. So let's get to the real meat of the game. Is the gameplay of this game any good at all? Or is it just like a aesthetic graphical showcase, like a PlayStation game? Well, the gameplay is actually the whole reason this game stuck out to me at all. This game is a weird mixture between that MMO style mystery and grind mixed with that modern day action RPG elements of like games like Nier or Dark Souls, yay. This mixture allows the game to feel like a unique product, an MMO with actually engaging and unique combat. Not to mention the movement of the game is like really fun. You end up bouncing and dashing around like you're Sonic running around the damn arena or something. The funny thing is, for a game that's emulating that old style graphics gameplay, the movement ends up feeling incredibly smooth, which overall makes it more fun to actually move around the world. If you're not moving that smooth, it's not going to be very fun to walk around. Most MMOs can actually be pretty sluggish too, and for the most of the game you're stuck walking around place to place until you pay $50 for that Blizzard mount that looks like a statue of Redditor would have in his room or something, or like some cute unicorn thingy, also Redditor, like Deadpool shit. But ranting about the movement aside, the most interesting thing about the MMO and action RPG mix is that it's not an open world game at all. It's more like that classic video game style, these instant zones that you load into. And speaking of instant zones, I should actually probably talk about the start of the game before oops. The very start of the game simply smacks you in the Sanctuary Zone. You get a very short tutorial where you just visit all the areas and, well, that's it. Like that, you're immediately in the game and ready to begin. No other tutorial, no combat tutorial, no nothing. Figure it out. When it comes to the Sanctuary Zone itself, actually has a decent amount going on for it. Having 4 main vendors, 3 of those being related to your specific classes and actually giving out quests for you. The main vendor, obviously, is a tutorial from Undertale. Then there's southern looking bar maiden with a figure of some kind. Yeah, you can infer what I'm saying. And lastly, there's the demon knight guy who looks like he belongs in like Doom or some shit. Angela here, which I call Tutorial Lady, gives you every single main quest you have for the majority of the game and also handles your stuff around the Mystic class. And since I'm actually talking about the Mystic, I guess I should like start the game on my Mystic. For the Mystic build, you get 2 different weapons. A scepter, which is the most basic magic weapon that you could possibly ask for, and the most unique magical weapon I think I've ever seen in my damn life, a giant bell. I've never seen a heavy magic weapon in my entire life. Well, maybe I've seen 1 or 2, but the idea of slinging a giant bell around just like shooting music notes is really weird to me. But from a gameplay perspective, since you can hot swap between 2 weapons at any time, they sort of have a use that makes it better than the other when you need it. So here's the part where I actually talked about the abilities too, since I mentioned it earlier. Every race and weapon you start with has nearly the same abilities. A healing ability, a rock throwing ability, and then of course your race ability. But earlier I said all the race abilities were like pretty much useless, and you should just kind of play what you want. But why? Do all the abilities suck or something? Well, obviously not. Some of these race abilities are actually required for specific builds that people want to do, and obviously builds for these classes. And because of that, every single one of these race abilities can drop in the overworld. It'd kind of suck if you were just stuck looking like a mouse when you wanted to be a bunny. Meaning every single race can just use every single ability, as long as you can get it to drop for yourself. And with the specific classes, in this instance, the Mystic, the main race ability that you want for the class is Alacrity, which normally comes from the Cubold race. The ability just lets you summon a cast without mana. Pretty basic stuff. Until you unlock your class-based abilities, you mainly just use it to heal or whatever. All your abilities are just kind of useless unless you find some random drops. When it comes to the stats for all the classes, the stats scale with your specific weapon. Basic stuff as well. It's simply shown in the weapon info screen. I mean, it tells you what the weapon scales with. There's only 4 stats anyway. Strength, mind, vitality, and dexterity. Mystic, for instance, is for the mind stat, which increases your magic damage and max amount of mana. With all that being said, and the class being somewhat laid out, I can actually talk about the actual game again. I broke away from it. And about time too, because with the player finishing the tutorial, you immediately unlock the first dungeon. Talk about fast-paced games. In most games, your first quest is like kill 10 slimes or go talk to Gleep Glorp, the gem salesman or something, and then like go get him something. But this game gets straight to the point. Dungeon, immediately. Go figure it out. The first dungeon, the Sanctum Catacombs, holds 3 different versions of the same dungeon for different level zones. 2 of these dungeons have a boss fight, both of those bosses being kinda different, but while the beginner one has no boss. The dungeons in this game are actually pretty interesting to me. Just there's actually different dungeon layouts, so it's completely random sometimes. Well, completely random in a figure of speech because they're generated levels that you cycle through, about 4 or so. I've seen about 4 total. But the enemies here in the beginner catacombs are pretty easy. The higher level ones only go up to around level 7 with these Geist guys with the sword or scythe, I guess I can't see. While the lower level ones go around level 3. But with us in the first dungeon, I can discuss what is a major aspect of the game. The furries. About time, too. The combat. The combat is mainly straightforward, while some of it obviously varies on the class. It goes as simple as this. With whatever weapon you have a combo, somewhere around 3 or so hits, the basic thing. Then there's a dash hit, which is a different animation, and an aerial attack for when you jump. I mean, with later on, you actually get some proficient skills, like a charge jump or a charge attack, and a bounce around, stuff like that. Secondly, there's a parry mechanic based on the block button. The block in this game is pretty much like that Smash Bros. Bubble shield thing where you just have to block right before it hits you and it parries, and if you block too late, it shatters your shield a bit. Lastly, there's the ability hotkeys. I have the most basic setup you can go with, but like most abilities in MMOs, they're at the very bottom of the screen in a little hotbar. Some moves are easier to parry, some are harder, but for my playtime, I haven't found a single move that actually can't be parried. There is some enemies that can't be stunned, which is, you know, the point of parrying, but you can still parry it and not take the damage. And that's just because I'm the greatest gamer to ever live. I can parry everything. For the actual dungeon gameplay, it mainly is just having rooms of enemies that you gotta clear out. Then you gotta grab a key, press a button, simple thing, go about your business. Enemy wise, the enemy design stands out a lot since it matches the overall aesthetic the game is trying to go for. None of the enemies are really threatening, really. Some of the later on ones, sure, but most of them are pretty cute looking and match the themes of the area and the game pretty damn well. Comparison wise, which I hate doing because really the basic comparison this game reminds me of is the original GameCube version of Wind Waker. Talk about basic, talk about creative. Pull up a Nintendo game and then you win. Wind Waker managed to have a serious enough story around a cartoony designed world, being a very massive shift from its prior entries like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, and also a shift from its later entries like Twilight Princess, like that. And Atlyss manages to pull off that exact same feeling with this graphics and design. And this comes from an edgy gamer who prefers all my games to be like dark and gritty and emo and angry. I genuinely adore these cartoonish graphics though, and these cutesy characters designs behind everything. A lot of the textures also look like they're water painted or color painted, and it goes with the same of the character design. Oh, I mean, some of these enemies can be plopped in like an episode of Phineas or Ferb or any childhood cartoon and you just could not tell at all. Now honestly, the first dungeon should be relatively easy if you aren't a toddler. You get two main enemy types, these flying skulls and these little reaper guys that come in like two forms, two recolors. It's kind of difficult to parry the skulls because they just kind of fly at you, but the reaper guys is easy. They gotta find a more unpredictable move set. But if you're playing Mystic, you're usually just gonna be far away anyway. I will say starting on Mystic for me at least sucked. I hated it. Your damage is just so low compared to the other two classes because all your damage is based around spells that you get later on. So for the most part, you're just kind of useless. And as I said earlier, you can get a good amount of spells just from playing, like this Ice Bolt spell, this Rock Spire spell, which, you know, you could tell from the screen that completely carried me through the first dungeon because I got it early enough. Can't already tell Mystic was my least favorite class out of the three, mainly just because I don't like mages that much in RPG games, but it's because I just find it really boring. Most of your combat on the Mystic is just hitting enemies at a range. You barely even have to get close enough to really parry unless you're just playing really close up. At least later on, you have a pretty good amount of spells, which make it interesting enough, but some of them are AoE, others restore mana, some of them single target damage, some of them are shield. It is very, very simple. The only benefit of buying Mystic for me is I get to talk to this beautiful woman. As for the two different weapons, the bow and staff, they are pretty useful for their own scenarios, but most often than not, I just kind of use the scepter. Trying to dodge some of those range attacks later on with the belt is kind of a pain in the ass though, but you obviously get the classic benefit of doing more damage that all heavy weapons have. Overall, as I said earlier, I just don't like the Mystic, but compared to the ranged classes, Bandit just feels better to play. Bandit has both range and up close damage, making it the perfect middle ground class to play with, and obviously like every other RPG game, the ranged bow sneak super class is like the easiest and most overpowered to play. When you're not using the bow, you got the little Qatar things, which feel like they have the most damage visually. Even if you don't do as much damage as like a greatsword, you feel like you're doing good damage, and that's all that actually matters. Mystic kind of just stands out the way. Fighter and Bandit have both these pretty heavy damages to start. In Fighter's case, it's more about the weapons you go with, but Mystic's, even if its damage is only slightly less from non-ability attacks, it feels weaker, and I think maybe it's just the animations or something. Comparing Bandit and Fighter is easily the most interesting class compared to Bandit though. From my experience with Bandit, you really only have two pathways to go down: melee focused DPS with your Qatars, or just focusing all your damage on range with the bow. But for Fighter, you have so many weapons and builds to choose from: Great Hammer, Great Sword, one-handed sword, shield, scythe, with also being able to be a DPS and a tank. Even with all that, in reality, the builds are more about creativity. You aren't really locked out of anything besides for the class-based spells, and you can really just use whatever weapons you want in the end anyway. Some pieces of equipment are class locked, sure, but even as a fighter, you can use a scepter or a bow as an offhand weapon, so you might as well maybe just make a magic fighter or a magic tank or literally whatever the hell you want to do. That's something I really appreciated about this game. A lot of games either have specific build paths you're sort of stuck to, or in my personal no case with FF14. None. There's no builds. With Atlyss, you kind of just do whatever you please. It's kind of relieving in that way. Obviously, because I'm boring, I just stayed with the main basic setup that you would expect with the classes because, you know, I'm doing a video. You don't want to have too much shit going on. For my main 3 playthroughs, though, I mainly focused on the most basic setup as possible. I just kind of wanted a baseline to compare all the classes, but I will actually maybe, you know, experiment with the classes in my own time. But even without any sort of creative build, I still liked Bandit the most, mostly because I'm boring and I'm playing solo. So it's insanely easy when you're doing so much damage solo. I mean, compared to a tank, which would be easier solo, but that's besides the point. As for pure fun, obviously Fighter's always going to be more fun because you just have more weapon choices and have more paths to go down. And as I said, I hated Mystic the most. But with the classes out of the way, I should just, you know, continue what I was saying with the dungeons. I was scattered-brained or something. Before I mentioned the loaded-in crypt dungeon, having 3 different levels it can be played at, but there's actually another type of dungeon that unlocks around level 10. These dungeons aren't instanced in a real way, so there's not a zone that you load in. It's just a part of the open world. With my runs, I found 2 of them because the game's in early access. There ain't that much. One is a part of the main story, and one is just full of pigs. Don't go that one. That one sucks. The one's a part of the story is Crescent Keep. For some reason, it reminded me a lot of Shadow of the Colossus. Maybe it's the colors or the trees or something. Maybe that's just me. I have no idea. But on my original run on Mystic, I struggled. On my other runs, yeah, it became easier just because I knew what the enemies did. But it had to do with these specific little demons of an enemy. Stupid fucking Whizbore. What a little monster this thing is. It killed me more than the actual hard to fight enemies. Just because it's really your first experience trying to actually parry a spell. And because I have a big ego, I'd rather parry than just actually dodge and then bam, dead every single time. I mean, even with these golem enemies that are supposed to be like these super tanky, scary enemies, they're just predictable. They only got like 2 moves, but for some reason, those Whizbores just kicked my ass every time. Otherwise, Crescent Keep feels more like an endurance thing, since a lot of these rooms just throw big waves of enemies at you, just like the first dungeon. I really do like this dungeon a lot more than the crypt, though. It gives the players some jumps to maybe experiment with their movement, has some pretty easy enemies. I said the Whizbore, the only annoying enemy is these mouth guys, which I actually think are called mouths. Kind of a pain in the ass. They're ranged and poisonous. Damn, what kind of demon made this? So you may be thinking, all you've talked about is a dungeon. Is there anything else in this game? Is it a dungeon crawler like Diablo or something? No, of course not. There is a real open zone sort of thing. It's an MMO RPG kind of game, having different zones with different kinds of enemies everywhere. One good example of this that really breathes that classic MMO field is this main quest that makes you have to take out these little slimic guys, sadly. They are pretty cute. In the open world, to summon this slime diva. Oh my God, what the hell is this? The slime diva is only spawned by killing these things in the open world. Rather than giving you a general objective with a giant waypoint, it has that Morrowind style of just like read the dialogue so you can actually figure out what the hell you gotta go do. Or just go read the quest log or something. This is something I feel like a lot of older games did pretty often. That lacks that sort of hand holding that modern games love to do. Just helps to give that nostalgic feeling. Is it insanely difficult to figure out otherwise? Not really. The map just ain't that big. And it's pretty straightforward what you gotta do. Kill slime, kill whatever. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Now, obviously, outside of the main story, there's normal style side quest. Kill blank number of things for XP? Check. Or gather materials from said enemy or whatever? Check. Basic stuff. But with the short early access main story, it avoids these kind of missions for the main objectives. As I said earlier, outside of the tutorial mission, the first mission just go complete the first dungeon. Rather than making the player be forced to do some sort of fighting tutorial where they gotta like do a certain amount of objectives or hit the training dummy a couple times, it's more like figure the hell out, man. Even with the builds that are possible, the game doesn't make an effort to really guide you or put you in any sort of box to like force you to go any certain way or any certain pathway that it expects you to go down just based off what the developer could think of. Now obviously it achieves this by having a really straightforward 4-stat system. Letting the player use whatever weapon they want, of course, and obviously that has all the stats that any RPG nerd would want to balance out if they want that perfect build. I didn't really find anything in this game that tried to guide you or handhold you in any real way. Now there is more to discuss about the dungeon and gameplay, but we need to take a break to go into the glorious staple of the RPG, side quest town, baby. Side quests in Atlyss are actually pretty standard though. That sort of RPG thing. Kill enemies, bring materials, get XP. A good chunk of the side quests are actually based around whatever you're doing in the main quest. All the side quests, besides from killing slime and missions and stuff like that, are killing in this dungeon, gather materials in this dungeon, get a reward. There's only a couple side quests that aren't fully XP based on rewards. One chain of side quests are actually related to getting specific abilities that raise proficiency with a weapon. I kind of mentioned this earlier. It allows you to do trick moves, charging stuff. A little bit more important is based around fighting class armor and weaponry. This is a pretty simple quest. Get material, go get a sword, as well as for some other 2 side quests that give you 2 pretty strong sets of armor for materials. The thing about side quests in RPG games is I just remember doing all of them. You just end up super over leveled, maybe get something cool, but in Atlyss, not really. I mean, it's actually kind of difficult to get over leveled unless you're like that true Dark Souls run around the Demonburg area for 5 hours kind of grinder. All these quests are kind of repeatable though, and most of them don't just give you XP, but they're pretty lengthy, so it's kind of not that worth it. The main way you end up leveling up is usually through the main quest and side quest, obviously, as I just said. Killing enemies also gives you XP, but it's not enough. So besides for giant furry women with features and swords, what else even is there to do? Boss fights. Ooh, yeah, I love boss fights. Yippee. Currently, there's only 2 instance dungeons, the Crypt and the Grove, both having boss fights attached to them with 3 bosses from each of the dungeons. And of course, there's also 3 that are found in the open world, which apparently out of all of them, I just straight up did not find 2 of them. These little floaty furry girl thingies, I didn't even know they existed. Whatever. With these 3 dungeon bosses, 2 are part of the Crypt and 1 is a part of the Grove. Lord Zul'Naruda and Lord Kaluz are the 2 Crypt bosses that we start with. Lord Zul'Naruda, or just so I don't have to say his long ass name every time, Lord Zul here, isn't the hardest boss fight in the world once you get a good sense of the rhythm for combat, unless you're playing fighter, which just spam your tank move, I guess. That difficulty is mainly just around the fact that Lord Zul is magic based. All his attacks are ranged, they're all magic. I mean, you can't even really back up to get that little breather that you want, especially since he also spawns these Geist and these little poison bastard skeleton thingies. Ugh, god. Obviously, Mystic and Bandit barely have a problem with him, but for fighter, even with this tank ability that just literally just makes you straight up immortal, it can be kind of difficult. Not that difficult, but kind of. The rewards for it are actually pretty cool though. Some glamour items, which I'll mention briefly later on, and obviously some armor and weapons. Lord Kaluz isn't much different. I mean, he's a smash recolor of Lord Zul, but of course he has a higher level and better looking drops. As for the main boss of the Grove, the Colossus, which I didn't even talk about that dungeon. Oops. I'll go back to it, I guess. But the Colossus, oh man, what a damn pain this guy is. He's mainly one of those stompy kind of bosses. If you've played a video game before, you've probably experienced the Stomper boss. All he does is stomp AoE attacks everywhere. If you know how to parry, not that bad of a fight. But just like Lord Zul, he also summons enemies in the ring to come beat your ass. And these guys are more a pain in the ass than the actual bosses. As for the Grove dungeon itself though, pretty difficult if you suck, like most things. A lot of the easy parryable enemies do massive amounts of damage and expect you to parry them or dodge them. That's the whole point. It's also pretty, and reminds me again of Shadow of the Colossus. I think it's just because it's the same area as the other area I talked about earlier. As for the overworld bosses, I talked about the Slime Diva, of course. Oh, my love of my life. But there's 2 more that I just straight up didn't find, so I'm not gonna go find them. What are you gonna do, throw a tomato at me? My video. Fuck you. So what else? The game's artistically beautiful, has a fun mix of RPG and MMO combat, has interesting areas to play around. There's only a couple things left really. 1, the game's multiplayer, with the multiplayer being server based, kind of like most Valve games. Maybe there's some public servers you can Oh, okay then. It's like the Overwatch days all over again. Maybe even the TF2 days. Oh god. Well, I mentioned the glamours earlier, at least I'll move on from whatever I just saw there. All good MMO games must have some sort of glamour system if they want to be good. With this game, you trade in these stones to make glamour items actually usable, and then you smack them on. That's simple. My favorite one I've got is this little vampire outfit, but I have literally no idea or memory of when I got it or where I got it. There's also this ability to change your looks and your appearance using the stone at this mirror. And lastly, most importantly, the most important thing in all video games, gambling. Ooh, yeah. I love gambling. In this shady little area behind the tavern, you can gamble for items or whatever this little gremlin guy drops. I've got a glamour item or 2, couple weapons, and I personally recommend gambling all your cash away. That's a recommendation from me. And well, there just ain't really that much else. Atlyss has a lot going for it, but it is an early access game. This game just stood out a lot to me. The unique graphical and character art style immediately sort of jumped out, and it all tied together for my little gamer brain with having that combat in the world of the game. Now, some of that, of course, is probably just because the art style fits the art style of games from my childhood. Like I mentioned, Wind Waker. For some reason, I keep mentioning Shadow of the Colossus. It looks nothing like it, but I think Atlyss in its current form has all the base to become an amazing game when it's fully finished. Even with it in early access, it's getting a good stream of regular updates, and the game, for some reason, is really cheap. I swear these indie devs just hate money. They should be charging real cash for these kind of games. I get it's early access, but the industry can charge $70 for this shit every single year. This stupid Madden football game and these Call of Duty shits. But you can't charge $20 for a game that you worked on by yourself? Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye.